On Friday, 31st January at midnight Brussels time, the UK will no longer be a part of the European Union. The flag still flying at the European Parliament building in Brussels will be overnight taken off and moved to the House of the European History Museum nearby. British membership will then be a piece of history on display. For Brendan Barnes, businessman from Scotland, this is the last plenary session in Brussels. He worries about the future and feels disappointed as the decision to leave the EU was not his choice.
On a personal level, very worried about just moving around Europe because this is really as if a wall has come up, to be quite honest, between ourselves and Europe. On a business-wise, we may have spent the last 3 years talking about this, but even today, for exporting and importing, we're asking the question, what rules and regulations are we operating to? And we keep getting different information. So trying to adapt to that as a businessman is extremely difficult.
Our hope from a business point of view is that by and large trade will be, there will be a minimal disruption to trade as possible. Of course, we also will miss the UK from also a mind frame and their positioning point of view. Why? Because the UK is very much free trade and free market and single market. And losing a partner like that within the decision-making structures of the EU can also have an impact on the type of legislation that we might be seeing in the next months and years to come.
Now it's about to make sure that the economic negative impact will be as little as necessary and as possible. So obviously the impact will be larger in the UK because the euro will continue to be the UK's main market, and therefore I think they have an economic interest to keep as good as possible an access. But there will also be, of course, negative impacts on European economy. But of course we expect that in the EU 27 this can be remedied upon in 2 to 3 years, whereas in the UK the impact might be more structural.
What happened next? It's still big unknown for many areas. Professions, employers, customers, travelers. One is certain. For the next 11 months, it will all run as before, with the negotiations over the future relationship still to begin. By the end of this year, during the transition period, the UK and the EU should agree on matters such as security, law enforcement and data sharing. They will also have to agree on free trade deal that will then determine the conditions of the future economic relationship.
For me, for instance, one of the major issues is aviation. Aviation, moving people by air, all of that has to be done by international agreement. And the EU itself has an international agreement, but they'll need to negotiate a new one between the United Kingdom and the remainder of the EU. And that itself is something that's difficult. Until the end of the year, all of the existing legal relationships remain in place, but if they haven't finished their negotiations on potentially hundreds of different issues that need international law to cover it, they're going to have problems.
One can say the more the UK will want to diverge from EU rules in core sectors, the less access or the heavier the disruption on trade investment flows will be. And the more they are able to stay aligned to core rules, the higher the level of future exchanges could be, and this is what we are aiming for.
The number one priority for us as well, as business representatives, is that the interests of the EU are safeguarded. The last thing we want is that there will be a ripple effect of other countries saying, well, if the UK did well by leaving, then we should leave as well. So clearly this is the number one priority.
The UK is physically very close to Europe. There will always be a huge trading relationship between them. It's now a trading relationship that's just gotten much more difficult.
Brexit takes place 3.5 years after the referendum in the UK was held. Once the British membership ends, the vision of the future relationship remains blurred. The transition period for trade negotiation may still be prolonged if UK asks for it by June this year. It is not an option for Boris Johnson's government, at least for now.
Mr. Koenig, I remember.